Hello dear viewers, today I'm looking at what Halo CE is, if it's any good, and if the anniversary edition of this game is worth grabbing. Halo CE was made in the year 2001 in November by Bungie Interactive, but we're talking about the version in the Halo Master Chief Collection for this video, which was a remaster done by 343 Studios, who are now known as Halo Studios. So Halo Combat Evolved originally came out for the Xbox, and it spawned a whole franchise that later became Xbox's flagship game, used to push sales of both the Xbox as well as the Xbox 360, as it was a console exclusive. Later it was ported to PC in both 2003 under Gearbox, and then later as part of the Halo Master Chief Collection in 2020. It also unlocked many people's fetishization of the AI character Cortana, as well as their interest in feet, truly creating the first foot fetishists and the AI gooners. Truly, Microsoft was ahead of its time predicting the AI Gooner craze. One thing worth noticing that's quite interesting is that Halo originally started as a real-time strategy game, but obviously it eventually shifted from that, then becoming a third-person shooter, before finally they settled on the idea of a first-person shooter game, the game we know it as today. We can clearly tell though that the idea of a real-time strategy game was never completely forgotten, as we then later got the side series of games known as Halo Wars, which are a real-time strategy game set in the Halo universe. Halo Combat Evolved at the time was incredibly revolutionary, introducing new features that hadn't really been part of the first-person shooter genre, and it also made great use of a split-screen system that we don't often see in modern gaming, as couch co-op seems to have disappeared in recent years. So let us start by talking about Halo Combat Evolved's story. If you don't want spoilers, skip ahead to this part of the video, otherwise continue listening now. The game begins with us playing as John Halo himself, the Master Chief, and we're aboard the UNSC ship, the Pillar of Autumn, as it goes down due to a Covenant attack. This all takes place before the events of Reach, which is a game I'll cover at another point. We fight through the ship, we get an evacuation, and we land on the Halo ring that just happens to be outside where we are. Once we recover from landing on the ring's surface, we travel around finding other survivors, getting them help, and rescuing 3 different groups of Marines, with the assistance of the best girl pilot, Fohammer. During this time, Admiral Keyes gets kidnapped from the wreckage of the Pillar of Autumn, and we have to go and rescue him from a Covenant battleship, making use of both nighttime cover and a handy sniper rifle to kill the Covenant in our way. After we save Keyes, he goes to look for a weapons cache as we escape the ship. And then we start our attack against the Covenant. This is where we get one of the most memorable levels in the game, the Silent Cartographer, where we storm the beaches alongside the UNSC Marines and then go and investigate some Forerunner artifacts, which give us a map of the Halo ring itself. This is just one of those levels that really sticks into your head and is incredibly hard to forget, really the peak of the Halo experience. Then ourselves and Gunabait Katana go and look for the control ring of the Halo ring. Upon finding the control room, Katana interlocks with the systems and manages to find some horrifying things. She quickly sends us off to go and find and deal with the problem, aka Keyes is an idiot and the weapon cache isn't a real weapon cache. But she doesn't actually explain what the issue is, so you know, the typical movie trope of it's coming, but not really explaining what it is. In our attempt to find Admiral Keyes, we end up searching a swamp looking for him, going through Forerunner buildings, where we end up in this really dark, foreboding level. Things are dripping from the surfaces and from the ceilings. There's blood everywhere, people dead, Covenants seem in disarray and running around, dying, all this sort of general chaos. And we also meet a Marine who is going mad, claiming that we can't take him and he's not gonna let us take them. Or something along those lines. We quickly find out what's causing all this chaos when we're introduced to the secondary antagonist of the game, the Flood. Flood are parasitic little swarm creatures that basically just kill everything, take the bodies over, and repurpose them. We quickly get out of the Forerunner building, and upon getting out, we manage to encounter a little robot called 343 Guilty Spark as we are trying to retreat. He teleports us away and takes us with him to activate Halo's defenses, where we also go through the worst level known to man, the library. It's just the same room over and over again. At the end of this level, we fully activate Halo's defenses internally and manage to acquire the index, which will allow us to do something. Once we've acquired the index, 343 will tell us and teleport us back to the Halo control room, whereupon Katana will basically stop us, stating, "Wait a minute, this little robot wants to blow everything up in the nearby vicinity." Turns out the Halo ring is actually a super weapon that will eradicate all life in the nearby vicinity to starve the Flood of any form of food. and 343 wants us to activate this. Of course, we don't allow that, and 343 turns upon us and activates a load of security drones to try and delete us. We then quickly escape from 343 and come up with a solution to stop this ring from ever being fired. We're going to blow up the ship that we crashed earlier, you know, the Pillar of Autumn, and in order to do this, we're going to need to get the neural link commands from Captain Keyes, who we find dead later on inside the Covenant battleship. He seems to be being transformed currently into some form of blood creature that we later find out might be a proto-gravemind. We quickly kill Keyes, making sure he is definitely dead, stealing his Neuralink, and then we take a Banshee to our ship. Once on the ruins of our ship, we travel through squads of Covenant, swarms of Flood, and also Sentinel robots that have been activated by 343, who has managed to find his way to our ship and is currently sitting around the main engine control room. Obviously, we decide we can detonate the engines, so we go down there, devastate the engines, setting off a chain reaction. At this point, we have a select amount of time to run away. We try and get Fohammer, the best girl, the only girl, to help us escape, but she is shot down and killed by some Banshees, leading us to have to take our Warthog and do the Warthog run all the way to the main bay and take a ship out ourselves. We do succeed, and we watch as the Halo ring explodes, with Katana stating, "Well, that's over," and Master Chief, the ever smart boy that he is, saying, "No, we've only just started." Fortunately, we also see an end credit scene where we realize 343, the little boy, the little robot, the annoying guy, has managed to survive, and he's currently just floating through space. Hopefully he stays there. Now, dear viewer, it's the point of the video where I have to remind you to like and subscribe. It helps me grow and it helps me understand what the channel is doing well and where I can improve. So do make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure to also hit the alarm bell so you're notified of when my newest content comes out. Also, if you're really enjoying this and you want to be more involved in the community, we do have a Discord that I'm just trying to get started that I'll link in the description. Please make sure to join it if that's something you seem interested in. We do have games nights every now and then. So everything there was just a quick brief overview of Halo Combat Evolved story. Now we're going to look into the actual gameplay mechanics and how we can play this game and what makes it stand out. Now, Halo Combat Evolved plays much like a normal shooter game. It has the movement, it has the shooting, it has the jumping of any normal first-person shooter. Now you're going to be going, Solidarity, you said this game revolutionized shooters, which it did by introducing the ability to flog grenades at your enemies without having to holster your weapon, as well as being able to punch them in the face without having to holster your weapon, which was something other games didn't do at the time. Also, it introduced an AI that was smart enough to take cover, run away from grenades, and try to react and interact with the player's own actions, which again at the time was quite rare to see, maybe to that level of complexity. So one thing that Master Chief has is both his shield and his health. Now the health is the same as in most FPSs, but the shield is a bit unique to the Halo series. The shield can be replenished just through standing still, not getting shot at, it will slowly regen, and it allows you a bit of a buffer. Meanwhile, the health is something that when it disappears for good until you find a health pack which is scattered throughout the level. And you slurp up that health just like the cool, refreshing night water that you can only get at midnight. There are also upgrades you can find throughout the level, such as the Overshield, which gives you a temporary buff to your shields, making you a big, strong, beefy boy. And alongside that, you can also find stealth upgrades that make you a little bit invisible, which is great for bullying and brutalizing the little grunts. They never know what's coming. So the main enemy of the game is the Covenant, who are odd religious fanatics that pretty much hate humans and really hate us, really spite us, really see us as beneath them. In other words, they're kind of stealing our thing. It's normally us in sci-fi universes that like to beat on others. The Covenant consists of grunts, which are small little boys that are pretty weak and will generally run away. They do come in packs though. You also have elites who are strong warriors ready for combat. They typically come with shields of their own as well as basic weapons. You also have hunters who are big, colossal, monstrous creatures that generally do a lot of damage. If they hit you, and if you get too close, they will try and melee you to death by beating you with their arms. Just like Harambe the gorilla, except from he was actually a good one. He didn't do that. And the final race of the Covenant in this game is the Jackals. These are little boys who have little shields, not like in the same sense the Master Chief, little actual physical shields that are all made out of energy, as well as pretty nasty guns. but generally you can just kind of walk up to them and punch them in the face. Their shields are good, but apparently not good enough to stop your fist. One of the other enemy forces we have to deal with in the setting are the Flood. Now, the Flood in this game only consists of 3 different types of enemies. You have the combat form, which is basically the malformed body of a creature. This can either shoot you at you with guns, or beat you to death with their arms, or charge at you and just scream in your face, whacking you to death until you submit. You then have the big explodey boy. It looks oddly like some part of gross human anatomy, and when it gets too close, it explodes, unleashing the final form of enemy, the Flood Spores, who are little boys with little tendrils, and they just try to get in your face and jump at you. They're very low damage, but they do come in packs of 20s to hundreds to thousands. Not thousands, this game doesn't do thousands, but in massive groups. Now, there's only one final form of enemy left to talk about, which is that of the Sentinel robots. Thankfully, that is it. It is just a Sentinel robot. It's just a robot that shoots out a big beam of laser, and they are pretty susceptible to energy weapons. So honestly, they're annoying, but nothing to be majorly concerned about. Those are the forces of 343, and that's it. This does raise the next point I should probably talk about, which is weapons. So Halo Combat Evolved contains a variety of weapons, both human and alien, representing the forces of the UNSC and the forces of the Covenant. Human weapons range from things like battle rifles, sniper rifles, to rocket launchers, to the Magnum, which is basically just another sniper rifle with the sheer amount of damage it does and the ability to zoom in that most other guns don't have. And of course, you have my favourite weapon. The answer to the question, what's the worth of one alien life? Exactly 1 shotgun shell. Alien weapons, meanwhile, range from things such as the plasma pistol, the plasma rifle, and the needler, which is a gun that shoots out little needles of purple, basically crystals, that cause damage to your opponent when they explode after they embed themselves in your opponent's skin. In multiplayer, there are 2 additional weapons that you can only get in there, such as the flamethrower and the fuel rod rifle. Alongside this, there are some weapons that do exist in the game that cannot be picked up by the player, such as the plasma sword, which in Halo CE you can find elites wielding, but you cannot pick it up once they die, as it seems to disappear with them. This is something they do change in the later games, and it is an iconic piece of Halo now. It's also worth noting there are 2 different types of grenade. You have frag grenades, which explode and do large radius damage, and you also have plasma grenades, which stick to opponents and basically give them instant death due to how they explode. These grenades sometimes have funny interactions with the physics of the game, where a grenade will set off a chain reaction because it will bounce off something next to another grenade and then explode, causing that grenade to go off, which then causes every other grenade nearby to go off, basically creating a corridor of death and a chamber of explosions. Honestly, it's terrifying but beautiful to watch. During campaign missions, we also have Marines, which will help us by fighting enemies and generally getting on board our vehicles and assisting where and when they can. Best to try not to let them die, otherwise the game will take it out on you. If you kill a few too many Marines, they will seek to kill you back. After all, they will consider you a traitor to their cause. Alongside this, the game does actually have a mass variety of vehicles, ranging from things such as the Warthog, which is basically a big buggy with a gun strapped to the back of it, to tanks such as the Scorpion, and vehicles such as the Wraith and Banshee, which are both alien vehicles, and one of which allows for the ability to fly, though they only do appear on specific levels. They control more in the sense of tank controls, where they'll only move in the direction the user is currently looking, and it can make their movement quite awkward at times, and generally a little bit janky, but it's great fun. Honestly, there is nothing better than getting in a vehicle and running down some grunts and watching as they try to dodge out the way, but don't quite make it as your wheels crush them underfoot. It was worth mentioning that while I was playing the game, I did find a couple of bugs that sometimes checkpoints didn't seem to trigger, which caused me to spawn much further back than I would have liked to, sometimes making me replay long stretches of level that were quite difficult and frustrating, and at times making me generally quit playing the game in anger and rage, especially on the harder difficulties. But yeah, unfortunately this version does have that as a major bug. There are other ones, but that is the major key one that I noticed. And it's something you would have hoped would have been fixed in the Anniversary Edition, especially when it was ported as part of the Master Chief Collection, but alas, it was not upgraded because 343 are lazy and do not want to fix their problems. So, just something to make you aware of. So this is the part of the video where I start talking about Halo Combat Evolved's original graphics and what changed in Halo Anniversary Edition. One way to describe Halo Combat Evolved's graphics is old. They're very old. They of course do come from the year 2001, so they do not look very modern and generally look a little bit dated. But They do really get across the sci-fi aesthetic, the sci-fi feel, and it makes great use of the graphic ability it does have to really try and immerse the player in the environment. For instance, ancient Forerunner structures do look old, and they do look unique due to the designs that have been chosen for them, and they give a bit of a feeling of something much more ancient, much more powerful, and much more older than you, the player. So we have a variety of different level environments. We can go from wandering around the flat grass plains of the Halo Ring to the snowy realms of the Halo Ring with its caves and its tunnels, and then we can go even further and go into the internals and the old Forerunner structures, which are a bit more tighter than the other environments and have a whole different vibe. Obviously, the grasslands are quite open, the snowy realms are a little less open, a little bit more compact, but in general it enables a variety of different ways to play and different interactions with the environment. Of course, this isn't including things like the spaceships, such as the Pillar of Autumn itself, and the Covenant battleship. The Covenant one tends to look quite sleek, quite modern, quite futuristic, and generally very alien to us, whereas the human ship is a little bit more boxy, a little bit more built for purpose, a bit more functional, but very unstylish. Lots of straight, sharp angles. Again, very imperialistic, very functional. Alongside this, enemies look aesthetically pleasing, with the elites looking very sleek, just like the ships. The grunts looking a little less so and a little bit more grotty, really resembling the fact that they are the lower beings in the Covenant. And you also have things like jackals, which just look a bit smart and a bit clevery. You also have the things like the hunters, big, imposing, monstrous creatures, which do really feel that, especially with the bulky armor, the big sharp spikes. They really stand out. You also have the Flood, who look incredibly gross and disgusting. They've got mangled little parts all over them, and of course, when you kill them, they blow up in giblets and giblets, exploding everywhere. You also have the little gross little Flood infection forms, the little small boys that have their little tendrils, and they look really gross as they approach, and they jump and move in ways that are quite pleasing. Generally, it's very fun to kill them, though, especially when they jump at you, because you can kind of just bot them with your gun, but also they just kind of explode as they hit your shield. The lighting in Halo Combat Evolved also does some heavy work, really helping build a sense of foreboding, and really helping bring the creepy vibes, especially to the Flood levels, which it makes it dark, mysterious, really helping the unnerving nature of the Flood. It helps build the suspense, and alongside the unraveling of the Flood, and in general, it just does a really good job. Alongside that, there are lights throughout the levels that kind of direct the player where to go, but also they don't feel too obnoxious. It's not like a hand-holding way of doing it. It's just a, this way, guys. Come on, please. Initially, the level design of the game is really good, with the first few levels being really nice and unique, but as we get further throughout the game, we do kind of start to realize that in order to clearly save time and save budget, the levels were used over and over again, and rehashed, and basically we will end up traveling through the same levels, not necessarily in the same direction, but we'll go one way through it, and then later on we'll go the other way back. This does kind of lose some of the magic of those levels as we're seeing them again and again, and it kind of makes them feel a bit dull. They do try to edit these levels to account for this fact by potentially, in the case of the Covenant ship, they make it a bit more overrun, a little bit more gross, a little bit more Flood infected. With the library, it's just a horrible, constant repetitive hallway, so not so much change there. And in general, it's just, the Pillar of Autumn is probably the biggest example of this, where we go through it again, but this time it's a ruin, it's burnt out, and we see bits of it that we didn't see before. So it's one of those things where it reuses some of it, but it does introduce some new content. But as a whole, in the Anniversary Edition, it would have been nice to see when they rehashed this, remade this, they may potentially should have changed some of the levels up and made them a bit more dynamic, but they didn't. Hopefully, in the future, this is something we might see, but I'll get to that in a little. Soundtrack-wise, the original Halo Combat Evolved has an incredibly good soundtrack that really helps build suspense, especially on those Flood levels where it has those sort of creepy strings and things like that that kind of play, really building up the Flood as this imposing, terrifying opponent. Alongside this, you get some more sci-fi, futuristic sounding things alongside the Covenant, again really giving into the more futuristic, advanced race and species that they are. And also you get some really loud, clamorous battle music, really making you feel in the thick of it. Generally, the music does a really good job of bringing you into the game and into the environment, really immersing you in the sci-fi setting. Of course, there is the notable Halo menu theme, as well as the Warthog run theme, which have not just gone down in in the history of the game, but also in the history of games as a whole, and they're so iconic that people who may have not even played this game still know what they are and have heard them. So this is now the part where I have to talk about Halo Anniversary Edition itself. You'll notice I haven't really talked about the multiplayer at this point. That's mainly because I haven't really had much of a chance to play it. I didn't get to play it much as a kid, and Halo Combat Evolved just doesn't have that much of a multiplayer scene anymore because we have games like Halo 3 and Halo Reach, which do have a more active multiplayer scene. So the Anniversary Edition of Halo Combat Evolved was released in 2011, and it was promised to be a graphical overhaul of the original, and it does generally improve the graphics. They are much more in line with modern standards, I think similar to what Halo 3's graphical standards are, if not a little bit better, and they generally are a bit more vibrant and they look more pleasing to the eye. But personally, I do believe they've caused some issues that they didn't foresee, which I'm going to expand upon here. So firstly, yes, whilst they did update the graphics, they didn't update the cinematics. What's the point of updating the damn graphics if you don't update the damn cinematics? They're basically the same cinematics from the original, but instead of getting the glorious overhaul that they did in Halo 2, the remaster, where they're fully cinematic, it feels a bit like a movie, they're just in-game, and they're just slightly improved from the originals. So realistically, it feels incredibly lazy, and it's just disappointing that clearly this game didn't get the same treatment that Halo 2 got, which is just really unfortunate and really upsetting. Alongside, in the remake, they've actually made the game generally a bit more brighter, which does affect certain levels more than others. The flood levels become a lot more obvious, in the sense that there's less foreboding, there's less building up to the flood. You just kind of see them coming a mile off, and it just ruins the whole thing. What's the point of having Gary the Flood over there try and hide if I can clearly see him coming? It just ruins storytelling. So yeah, things like the blood on the walls is just reduced to nothing, and it's just really badly done, and it just doesn't build up the suspense and tension like the original does. So it's just a bit of a downgrade in some regards. Whilst yes, graphically it looks better, it does take away from the atmosphere and the immersion. The Anniversary Edition does add some things other than just graphical updates. It adds skulls. Skulls are collectibles we can find throughout the level that allow us to do some more things. For instance, they might allow us to fly through the levels. They might allow us to start with more ammo. They might allow us to challenge ourselves in additional ways by removing HUD elements. And generally, they're cool little collectibles we can find throughout the level. They're normally tucked away. You might have to do a rocket jump to get them, go behind, obviously, a waterfall, because everything's behind a damn waterfall. And just traversing through bits of the map you might generally not navigate, which is a really good way to get the player to actually have a bit of an explore, and you do get to experience more of the game that way. Alongside this, in the Anniversary Edition graphics, they've added terminals that you can find. These terminals have good cinematics, you know, the thing they should have done for the in-game cinematics. It's really frustrating, because it's clear sign they could have done it, they just chose not to. These cinematics generally tell us a bit of the story behind the Halo ring, tell us a bit of the story from 343's perspective, that being the robot, not the company, and it kind of unveils little tidbits of information that really help expand the story and expand your knowledge of the universe, which I think was a good move, and it's just annoying that I have to be in the new graphics to find these, and also that they just didn't choose to do the same thing for the actual gameplay cinematics. As I've mentioned once, but I'm going to mention again, it's worth noting that the Anniversary Edition does not fix certain bugs. Again, the checkpoints, as mentioned earlier, are just really buggy. Sometimes they don't trigger. And in general, there are still issues around sound and graphics. For instance, occasionally throughout playing the game, I found myself having sound glitches where it just sounds like something's constantly slapping against something even once it's died. It's just really irritating and just shouldn't exist, considering this is meant to be a remaster. It should have enhanced and fixed these problems. It should have solved them. It didn't, though, so it's kind of frustrating, considering some of these bugs have been around since the original version. So finally, we get to the question I asked at the start of the game. Is Halo Combat Evolved worth getting? I would say yes, but purely on sale, because at the moment, it's a good game, it's got some good story, but it does come part of the Halo Master Chief Collection, which is obviously a bit expensive, so it's definitely worth waiting for it to go on sale. Of course, in 2026, so this year, we are going to be getting an actual complete remake, so there is an argument to hold off and wait for that remake. called Campaign Evolve, but we don't know what that remake is going to be like yet. We know it's getting made in the Unreal Engine 5. We don't know whether that's going to be a good game. We don't know if it's going to be true to the original. We truly don't know what the remake's going to be like yet. We don't know what the bugs in it are going to be like. So there is an argument to just buy Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition and just play it on the old graphics before potentially going onto a bug-ridden mess. But again, we don't know what the new Halo remake is going to be like yet. But 343/Halo Studios don't have a great reputation as of current, so it's worth being cautious. So my final scoring is one Warthog hitting a grunt and destroying his livelihood. But in all seriousness, it's a good game, it's some good quality fun, and I would highly recommend picking it up on sale just for a simple shooter game that purely is relaxing to play and doesn't require too much thought. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you'll subscribe and you would like allowing me to know that you want to see more of this content. The next game I'll be looking at is Age of Empires, and we'll be looking at it, whether it's worth getting, what it is, and what its future looks like. We'll also have some sporadic content coming out throughout the weeks, focusing on things such as Paradox Interactive subscription systems. Hope you enjoyed and have a good day/rest of your evening.